Millions of pensioners across the UK are now facing an unexpected tax shock, one that could quietly eat away at their retirement income, year after year. This isn't a dramatic new law. It hasn't been debated in Parliament or plastered across headlines. No, this is something more dangerous, a stealth tax that's silently dragging millions of ordinary people into the jaws of HMRC. And now, for the first time, many state pensioners are finding themselves forced to pay income tax simply because thresholds have been frozen while pensions keep rising. Welcome to one of the biggest hidden tax stories in Britain today, one that could affect your wallet, your pension, and your future. So let's break it all down. In what experts are now calling fiscal drag, over 6 million more people in the UK have been pulled into the income tax system, not because their income has surged, but because tax thresholds haven't moved at all. In fact, the number of people paying income tax is expected to climb to a staggering 39.1 million in the 2025-2026 tax year. Just a few years ago, in 2021-2022, that figure was 33 million. That's 6 million new taxpayers in just a few years, and many of them are pensioners. Here's what's really happening. While the basic personal allowance, the amount of income you can earn tax-free, has remained frozen at £12,570 since 2021, both wages and pensions have gone up due to inflation, earnings growth, and of course, the triple lock. But because the tax thresholds have stayed exactly the same, more and more people are being pulled into paying tax on income that would have previously been tax-free. It's a slow squeeze. And it's hitting hardest where it hurts most, in retirement. Sarah Coles, head of personal finance at Hargreaves Lansdown, has raised the alarm. She says that fiscal drag is now responsible for adding more than 6 million people to the income tax rolls and pushing 3.36 million more into the high or additional rate tax bands. This isn't just about paying more tax on your wages. This hits your savings, your investments, and now, even your pension. According to Coles, it's having a devastating impact not just on working families, but on pensioners who thought they'd already paid their dues. It takes a huge chunk out of our savings and investments, she warns. It reveals just how much damage is being done to our finances by this horrible stealth tax, and there's plenty more to come. And she's right. Because as it stands today, the UK government has no plans to lift these tax thresholds until at least April 2028. That's 3 more years of frozen allowances while pensions and the cost of living continue to rise. The result? More pensioners, more savers, and more low to middle income earners dragged into tax brackets they never expected. Laura Souter, Director of Personal Finance at AJ Bell, paints an equally grim picture. She says that in just 1 year, from the 2024-2025 tax year to 2025-2026, an estimated 500,000 more people will be pushed into the higher rate taxpayer bracket. That's not millionaires. That's everyday people, teachers, retired nurses, small business owners now facing 40% tax rates on portions of their income. Souter adds that higher rate taxpayers are now expected to account for 1% of all UK taxpayers in 2025-2026. Let that sink in. Nearly 1 in 5 taxpayers in the UK will soon be paying the higher rate. And it's not because they are rich. It's because the thresholds have stayed the same while incomes keep creeping up. But here's the part that really hits home. It's not just the working age population who are being caught in the net. Pensioners are being hit too. In fact, many pensioners receiving the full new state pension, now worth £230, 25p per week, or over £11,900 per year, are being pushed dangerously close to the personal allowance threshold. Add in any private pension, a small annuity, or income from savings or investments, and suddenly you're a taxpayer. Even if you never paid tax before. Even if your income barely covers your bills. And this is the hidden scandal. Pensioners, many of whom spent decades working, saving, and contributing to the economy, are now finding themselves quietly reclassified as taxpayers simply because the state pension they were promised has finally risen. But the tax system hasn't moved an inch. So why is this happening? According to the Treasury, this government inherited the policy of frozen tax thresholds from the previous administration. A spokesperson recently said, At the budget and the spring statement, the Chancellor announced that we would not extend that freeze. We are also protecting payslips for working people by keeping our promise to not raise the basic, higher, or additional rates of income tax, employee national insurance or VAT. In other words, while headline tax rates are staying the same, the thresholds, the points at which people start paying those taxes, are staying frozen. It's a clever strategy. Politicians can say, hand on heart, that they haven't raised taxes. But in reality, by keeping thresholds locked in place, they are collecting billions more in tax revenue every year without ever changing the rate. That's fiscal drag. And it's pulling millions of pensioners into a tax trap. It's estimated that an average pensioner with both a full state pension and a modest private pension could now face income tax bills where none existed just a few years ago. The Office for Budget Responsibility has already warned that the income tax take will rise by tens of billions in the coming years, largely because of frozen thresholds. This means the quiet erosion of retirement income is no accident. It's built into the system. So what can be done? For now, the best defense is awareness. Pensioners need to understand where their income stands relative to the £12,570 tax-free threshold. They need to track any extra earnings, annuities, or investment income and factor that into their tax status. Many will need to register with HMRC and file a tax return for the first time in their lives. And that can be confusing, especially for those who thought their tax-paying days were behind them. Some may be eligible for marriage allowance, which allows a portion of unused tax allowance to be transferred between spouses, potentially lowering the tax bill for low-income couples. Others may be able to restructure how they draw down on pensions to avoid triggering higher tax charges. But none of this is simple. And none of it should be necessary, not for people who've already contributed for decades. That's why campaigners are now calling for urgent reform. They argue that the personal allowance must rise in line with inflation just as pensions do. They say the triple lock means nothing if the taxman takes a bigger cut each year. And they warn that unless something changes soon, the idea of a tax-free state pension will become a thing of the past. It's also a matter of principle. Should pensioners, many on fixed incomes and with limited capacity to earn more, be footing the bill for government spending? Should they be penalized for receiving the very benefits they were promised during their working lives? As the cost of living continues to squeeze UK households, and as pensions rise again next April, this hidden tax on pensioners is only set to grow. More people will cross the threshold. More will receive letters from HMRC. More will see their retirement budgets shrink under the weight of a stealth tax they never saw coming. So now the question is this: how long can the government keep this policy in place before public pressure forces a change? Will the next budget finally raise the personal allowance? Or will millions more quietly become taxpayers without even realizing it? We'll be watching. We'll be reporting. And we'll keep asking the questions that matter. Make sure you subscribe for the latest updates on pensions, benefits, and HMRC changes. This is more than just a tax story, it's a warning for every pensioner in Britain. Stay informed.